from school, turn on my TV. Who are these friends staring right back at me? Now that we're older, why don't you come over and go back in time with me? 90s babies, you start
Hi, I'm Amanda.
And I'm Jessica, and this is 90s Babies Nostalgia, where two fully grown millennial women rewatch and sometimes watch for the first time media from the early 2000s.
Just to be clear, we're not sponsored by nor affiliated with anything that we are talking about. Not the brands, not the production networks, not the shows, the actors, anything. We just really like talking about TV and movies. And today we are talking about the TV movie
Halloweentown.
Oh, this is an absolute favorite for our spooky season. So strap in, everybody. But before we get into what a beloved classic this one is, I have a question for you, Jessica. For spooky season, what do you think makes a good spooky show or movie?
I think, to me, spooky can also be, kooky or, a little bit of, weird or unnatural. So I think that, because I don't love the horror side of spook, I think what makes a good show is something that has something that's a little bit different, whether that be supernatural powers or seeing ghosts, or it might even be that the characters are kind of weird and act in strange ways. I think that really adds an element of spook that I appreciate.
I hear what you're saying. And I think that what we're going to talk about today has a lot of it.
What do you think?
I think everything you're saying is correct. I think also there needs to be an element of feeling misunderstood. I think all of these with witches and witchcraft tend to be about the outliers. There's a reason that queer culture tends to cling to villains and magical storylines. And also I think practical effects are something that I really undervalued until right now, because we recently did an episode on Beetlejuice and practical effects were a huge part of that. Also Halloweentown, practical effects and set designs and stuff, I think make it so cozy. And also in Agatha All Along, which is a newer Disney Plus release and is very just spooky season witch vibes, everything is a practical effect. They and it's all magic. They're in a magic location and walking what is called the Witch's Road, and they've said in interviews nothing is green screened. Everything was built out and they were really walking it, and that I think adds to the realism of the magic that makes me connect with it more.
Especially in a today's day and age, newer stuff where CGI and animation and things like that tend to be favored over doing the extra work of practical effects. So it's nice when you have a newer production that still leans on the practical effects, because it does assist in the world building in a more real way.
Yeah, and I think because of that first point about needing to feel like you're an outsider, that's part of what we love so much about the kooky and the weird, as you put it, is that we feel like we can relate, and maybe there's some escapism of wanting to be we all want to be Marnie in Halloweentown. And when you can see the world actually built out, it feels, the escapism is that much more real versus what this is controversial. I was never a big fan of Twitches because I felt like it was so heavily animated that it felt otherworldly, intangible. If that makes
unrelatable.
Sense. Yeah, there was no possibility because it was made on a computer, versus Halloweentown could be a set that I could visit and could become my new home.
Yeah, totally. Well, speaking of that, we are going to get into Halloweentown with some background first. It was filmed in May to June 1998 in Oregon, and then it was released October 17th of 98, and it was the 4th DCOM ever, which just crazy that they like had a banger so early on, you know?
I feel like, I mean, I don't want to shade new DCOMs at all, but definitely early DCOMs get a lot of credit for just being great. Like, wasn't Brink one of the very first ones? And that one's also very beloved. Xenon came out around this time, very beloved. For being a channel that didn't know what they were doing at that time, they knew what they were doing.
Totally. Halloweentown was directed by Dwayne Dunham, who also did other DCOMs, including The 13th Year. And then he also did Ready to Run, Right on Track, and Tiger Cruise. Oh, I think these are all DCOMs.
They are all DCOMs. I love Right on Track.
And then he's also known for coordinating with George Lucas and David Lynch on Return of the Jedi and Blue Velvet. And it was produced by Ron Mitchell, who did Smart House.
Oh,
I know. And Brian Pogue. The story and the screenplay was written by Paul Birnbaum, who has done a bunch of other writing work, but his biggest things are Halloweentown. He also wrote the sequels.
Including the fourth?
I think so, yeah.
I just was curious, not even from the whole, like, Marnie recasting standpoint, but because I think the storyline of the fourth one feels quite different to the other three.
Nope, he did not write the fourth, so he wrote the first three.
Slay. That makes sense. So now Jess has some fun facts about how Disney got here, which I did not expect her to have done all this research. Please enjoy as I paint my nails.
I fell down a Wikipedia hole and I'm gonna share it with you all. This is gonna sound like it's not related, but I promise it's related. ABC wanted The Wonderful World of Disney to return to their network because it had been airing on NBC since 1988. So they signed a deal to get rights to The Wonderful World of Disney. In exchange, Walt Disney Television agreed that they would produce 6 movies for NBC for them. So it was a little like swappy deal. We give you this, in return, you give us this. Then, in 1991, Sherry Singer, who's the SVP of TV movies, and Steve White, who was an ex-NBC exec that went on to start his own production company, were tasked with fulfilling the NBC movie contract. And so the concept came from Steve's daughter, who said to him, "Dad, where do all the creatures from Halloween go the rest of the year when it's not October 31st? Which I think is like such a kid thing to say. And I feel like so many writers are constantly inspired by their children or by things that kids say.
But I'm also like, how old was this daughter? Because was she 6 or was she 16? But honestly, question's valid either way.
Yeah, I was like, I don't think it really matters. It's still an honest question. And so with this concept, NBC greenlit the project and they approached screenwriter Paul to write it. And the script was presented to NBC in 94 and they passed on it. They're like,
losers.
I know. They're like, nope, don't want it. A little fun fact here is Paul, who's the screenwriter, the kids, Marnie, Dylan, and Sophie, were the name of his own children.
Do you think Marnie's the one that asked the question?
Paul is the writer, and those are his kids' names. Steve White was the exec that came up with the idea.
I knew as soon as I asked that question, I was like, I'm getting people mixed up.
Yep. With NBC passing on it, Singer and White, who are now a couple, joined forces, and they created Singer White Entertainment Company, who pitched Halloweentown to Disney Channel in 97. And Disney initially passed, but then they did a movie called Under Wraps, and it went really well. People loved it. And since it was so well received, they were like, you know what? Actually, we do want to greenlight this and want you guys to produce this movie.
That's crazy to me. I know Under Wraps did well because it was remade in the 2010s. I've never seen Under Wraps. I know people like it, but to think that like that they passed on Halloweentown until that one did well, like, are you crazy?
I think because they weren't sure how things were going to be received on the channel. You have to think this is the 4th DCOM, so they're still unsure. And so I think that probably gave them the push to be like, oh, this could be a success. But I agree, it feels crazy to pass. With so many people passed on it. Like, you have to think this idea came up in 91 and was not even created until 98, you know?
Humbug.
I know. Unrelated to that story that I just told of how it came about, Halloweentown is followed by 3 sequels, which we briefly mentioned earlier, but it's followed by Halloweentown 2, Calabar's Revenge, Halloweentown High, and Return to Halloweentown.
And this is not a fun fact as much as a me tangent that I had to go on, because rewatching Beetlejuice and rewatching Halloweentown, I've seen Halloweentown a million times. I hadn't seen Beetlejuice as an adult. And I think another thing going into our intro conversation that makes a good spooky something is the music. The score is imperative. It has to be a little bit spooky, but it also has to be playful in order for it to hit that like family friendly vibe that you like in a spooky comedy versus a horror movie where the score is like really related to the jump scares and stuff. So the music for the 2 films was so similar. I thought they could be done by the same person, which I thought would be crazy. They weren't. They were, however, both done by men who were co-founders of new wave bands, which kind of made sense. And the music for Halloweentown was done by Mark Mothersbaugh, who's the lead singer of Devo, aka the band that did Whip It Cool with the cones. He also did a lot of music, a lot of scores, but some notable for us. He did the theme music for Rocket Power, all of the Rugrats movies, All Grown Up, the Even Stevens movie, Confessions of a Teenage Drama Queen, but also some adult stuff like 21 Jump Street, 22 Jump Street, Thor Ragnarok, which was only 7 years ago. Can't believe that was already 7 years ago. Like literally so much. And wow. I just am always, we talked about this on Pop Capsule Pod when we were on talking about Rugrats. Like I'm always so fascinated by the people behind the scenes and how intermixed they are on all of our favorite projects of like, we were really raised by these projects made by the same half dozen people.
Well, especially in doing this podcast, that's how much I've realized that, like, whenever we talk about one specific genre, it is really like everyone is interwoven in that subset of genre. It's like a small world. It's the same as you said, handful of people that do everything.
Yeah, and I do think a lot of it has to do with it being children's media, but again, he works on stuff that isn't children's media as well.
Yeah.
Also, him being the lead singer of Devo is just so random.
Yeah.
Getting into our actors and main characters.
We have Marnie Piper, played by Kimberly J. Brown, not Jane. Don't know where that came from. She is our main protagonist. She's 13-year-old witch of the Cromwell family.
Which she doesn't know when the movie starts. She apparently only read for this role twice. Slay. And honestly, it was made for her. So her career kicked off with roles on Guiding Light, which she got an Emmy nom for her role as Mariah Lewis. And after Halloweentown, she was in the DCOM Quints. She was in a 2002 Hallmark movie of My Sister's Keeper, which I did not know existed. She had a very small role in that.
Then we have Dylan Piper, played by Joey Zimmerman. He's the 12-year-old brother to Marnie and Sophie. Amanda wrote the squariest square that ever did square, and he is definitely like that goody two-shoes kid. He's the one who like doesn't want them to have any fun and is kind of a tattletale and like just like not down for a joke, you know?
Yeah, he is. He's something. Oh, also Marnie is the namesake of my cat. Sophie Piper is the youngest. She's 7, and she's just starting to exhibit some little powers, though she doesn't know what that is. And she's played by Emily Roski. I don't know how to pronounce, but I know she's on TikTok. She's pregnant, and she makes jokes about being the little girl from Halloweentown now having a little girl.
Weird. She hasn't really gone on to do much else, so that's interesting. She's on TikTok.
Everyone is.
True. Then we have Gwen Piper, played by Judith Hogue. She's the protective mother of her 3 Piper children, and she's also a witch, though no longer practicing. Besides for this series, she's known for playing April O'Neil in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the 90s movie, as well as Cindy Dutton-Price in Big Love, Tandy Hampton in Nashville, and Stephanie Quinn in The Magicians.
And then, of course, we have Splendora Agatha Aggie Cromwell, aka Grandma, played by Debbie Reynolds, one of Hollywood's legends. She's a witch from Halloweentown. She's the Piper's grandmother, and she comes to visit on Halloween and plants some seeds for them. She was apparently the first actress cast in this film. No one else was considered for this role. And that makes sense. If you get Debbie Reynolds to say yes, why would you consider anyone else?
True. She's literally an icon of the 50s and 60s. Her breakout role was Kathy Selden in Singing in the Rain, but she's known for so much, but also known for The Affairs of Dobie Gillis, Susan Slept Here, Bundle of Joy, which she received a Golden Globe nom for, The Catered Affair, like so much. Voice of Charlotte in The Charlotte's Web. She also has TV credits, including Roseanne and Will and Grace, Rugrats, Kim Possible, like an icon.
Also, mother to Carrie Fisher, both of whom passed within like a week of each other, which is crazy. Then we have Luke, who is played by Philip Van Dyke. Wow, that's a name if I've ever heard one. Let's give him Mary Poppins. He is a 13-year-old goblin who's recently had a nose job and is helping out the bad guy in this one and is such a wiener.
He is a wiener, but that's hilarious.
He voiced Arnold Shortman in season 2 and 3 of Hey Arnold, and this is me learning for the first time that Arnold has a last name, and it being Shortman is really rude.
Fair. Then we have Calabar, played by Robin Thomas, who's the main antagonist, and he's the mayor of Halloweentown. He has played Mark Singleton on Another World and Jeffrey Wells on Who's the Boss. He also had recurring roles on 90210 and Switched at Birth. Also, like, he might be on one episode of every show that's ever made.
Oh, is he like the Even Stevens dad? He's just
like his credits were so long, but they were all like one episode. So I was like, I'm not going to mention if he's just on one episode, but like literally of every show ever made.
Honestly, respect a working actor.
Yeah, dude, get that bag. Like, it's fine with me.
He also kind of looks like Alex from Lou Burger.
He really does. Very specific reference, but yes.
If you know, you know.
Yeah, I have a feeling most people don't know, but I know. It's Halloween. All the Piper children are forced to stay indoors because Gwen is like, no Halloween, no fun here. Witches are evil. Stay inside. Then the grandma shows up, Grandma Aggie. They're all so excited to see her because they only see her once a year. And she tells them a bedtime story about Halloweentown and gives them a book. And loosely, the witch in the book looks like Marnie, even though no, it doesn't. It just looks like a generic girl, but all the kids think it looks like her. So we go with it. She has to head home, but before she heads home, she is talking to her daughter in the kitchen, is like, hey, things are going kind of awry in Halloweentown. I think I need another Cromwell witch. Like, bad stuff is about to happen and I really need your help. And while this is happening, Marnie is sneaking on the stairs, overhearing all of this, and hears that she has powers, and that if she doesn't start practicing to be a witch by this evening, the 13th Halloween, she's going to lose all of her powers. So when Grandma Aggie leaves, Marnie and Dylan sneak out of the house and follow her, and they get on the bus to Halloweentown. And surprise, surprise, so does Sophie because she was pretending to be asleep. So now all the kids are in Halloweentown without their mom, and Grandma does not know that they're there.
Once they're in town, they run into the mayor, Calabar, and he calls the taxi driven by Benny, who's a skeleton and a little crazy, to take them to Grandma's house. How Grandma already got to her house so quickly, I don't know. The gate is locked, but Sophie, who has been exhibiting some little powers, is able to open it by wishing that it opened. Well, wishing that it would turn into a frog. Yes. And once they're inside the house, Grandma Aggie is like, so we should return you. And they're like, but we could help. And she's like, you know what? You're right. You can stay. Here's what I'm doing. I need to light this talisman. And she uses like a Betty Crocker cake mix in a microwave to try to light the talisman, and it doesn't work. And she's like, you know what? Nothing's as good as baking from scratch. So, which is true. So now they need to like go on this little hunt. So they go into town. Meanwhile, Gwen realizes none of her kids are home, and she's peeved and goes to Halloweentown to get them back.
While they're going into town, Grandma Aggie approaches Calabar and is like, dude, people in town are becoming a little deranged, and some of them are even disappearing altogether, and I'm really concerned, like, this keeps happening. And he kind of just brushes her off and is like, wait 2 days, which I'm like, why do you trust this guy?
Gaslight.
Yeah. Gwen shows up in Halloweentown. She tries to get the kids to come home, but the bus won't be there for a few more hours. So while all of this is happening, Gwen opens up about hiding her powers from Marnie. Marnie's upset about this, and they all wander into the movie theaters in town because they're following Luke. And all... What?
Sorry, they don't wander. Luke leads them. He says, the guy wants to talk to you.
Yes, that is true.
They're just like wandering around Halloweentown and they're like, that looks new. Let's go in there. I wonder what they're playing.
Yeah. Well, it's all like boarded up and stuff too. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so he leads them into the movie theater, and all the missing people from town are frozen in their seats. So this kind of like verifies Aggie's suspicions about what's going on. And then an evil figure appears from the theater screen and freezes both Gwen and Aggie. So the kids leave and the monster disappears. First, they kind of like drown him out with the light because he's like allergic to light. And then they leave. They now are on a mission. They're like, we gotta save Halloweentown. We gotta save our mom and grandma. We gotta relight the talisman. But we need to make the witch's brew first. So they go on an adventure to collect all of the ingredients. And once they have all of the ingredients, Marnie realizes that she does not remember the spell. But guess who does? Miss Sophie, because of course she does. So they do it together and they relight the talisman.
But then they don't know where to put it. So they go to the theater and just like wave it in front of their petrified grandma's face, and it does nothing. And then Marnie's like, what did grandma say? Mortal see, mortal do. We gotta put the candle in the pumpkin because there's a big pumpkin in the middle of the square that's been looking like it's not lit and smoke's coming out of it. And so she realizes that's where she gotta put the talisman. But Luke pops up and he's like, Marnie, it's a trap. Don't do it. He's gonna get you. And so they come up with a little plan where Calabar reveals himself to the whole town, mid-speech, by the way. He's doing his thing. He's like, guys, we gotta rise up. We've been secluded to the second-rate world when we should have it all. And he's kind of winning the people over, I gotta say. They're kind of with it. And Luke puts on the cloak that Marnie was wearing, that was her grandma's, and like walks through the crowd so that Calabar strikes him while she's hanging from the top of the pumpkin, putting the talisman in. She gets hit, but then drops the talisman and it flips and lands just perfectly in the middle of the pumpkin, and it lights up and everyone's happy, and Calabar's like, Aah! That was my impression of him. So don't judge me. I always forget that there's more to the plot after that point. Oh, right. He grabs... So Aggie, Mom, everyone in the movie theater wake up. But then he somehow summons the talisman out of the pumpkin and is like, ha ha ha, you Cromwells suck. And then they all hold hands and chant together to retrieve the talisman from him while he just stands there doing nothing, waiting for them to succeed. And then they succeed. They get the talisman from him and he like becomes light and explodes. And then they decide that since the kids know about magic now, Grandma's going to come live with them, and Grandma and Gwen are going to train Marnie to be a witch.
Halloweentown, folks. It's great.
Can you guys tell that I wasn't reading the summary that Jess so politely wrote out because I know so much of it and I just rewatched it? But I also at times got lost because I did a little bit. Because genuinely, as many times as I've seen this, I forget every time that there's more after she puts the talisman in the pumpkin.
Yeah, there's like a whole nother 20 minutes, I want to say. It's like a good chunk after that happens.
Yeah, but it's kind of like, why?
Agreed.
Yeah. Anyway, overall thoughts. It's just such a cozy movie. It's so good. It's so cozy.
So cozy, so wholesome, so family friendly, but also has a lot of like elements of Halloween that it's like, truly, I get as much joy watching it now as an adult as I did watching it growing up.
Agreed. It's never not brought me joy. I also learned this time watching it around that I can quote most of it. I'm not that surprised. I have a good brain for words, but I was watching it casually last night, and I was saying lines before they happened on the screen.
I definitely cannot quote it as well as you. I'm aware, like, I know it very well. I've seen it at least a dozen times, probably a couple dozen, but I cannot quote it word for word.
I didn't mean to. It was just like, oh, hey, I think I know what they're going to say next. Like, it wasn't even all of the, like, big quotable moments. It was just like, I knew the lines that were coming, which was kind of crazy. But there were also some lines that I hadn't heard before, which was interesting.
Yeah.
It's definitely that kind of movie that, like, it's well written.
Oh, yeah. The biggest shock to me was in my brain, I associate Benny as a main character. He's not really a main character at all. He's in the movie for all of 5 minutes.
I will say he's probably a breakout character, if you can call one that in a DCOM, because he has a larger role in the second movie. And most of the characters that we see in Halloweentown in the first one don't return. Only Luke and Benny do, and he has a substantial role in that one.
Yeah, which makes sense. We deserve more Benny.
We do. He's funny. He's also terrifying when he's under the spell.
Yeah, he's creepy as hell.
I just think that, like, the way that I said that it's cozy, it's something about the way that movies were shot in the 90s, like the slightly lower tech, plus this is a DCOM, so the budget was crap. It's like softer, and then like the lighting was very warm. Also the practical sets, like I mentioned, like it just feels very, there's something about modern kooky witchcraft stuff that isn't as cozy as the stuff of the late 90s and early aughts because of the tech being so much better now and the coloring being different. You know, I liken this to practical magic in that way that it feels like fall even without the premise.
Yeah. It's also the setting. Like, you can tell they filmed in Oregon. Oregon was a good choice. Guess how much the budget was? Because you brought up budget, and I looked it up.
Definitely not more than 30, but I'm guessing, like, I don't know, like
lower.
5 mil?
4 mil.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, but pretty impressive product for 4 mil. Like,
but also some of these, I think it's in my notes, some of those practical effects are not great. Like, it's that's the one thing I didn't notice as a kid that I did as an adult because I watch this every year. It's not Halloween without watching it. Is like some of these characters are literally in the most dumb Party City costumes and face paint.
Yeah, and some of them I'm like, that's not even a monster. Like,
no.
I don't know what that is. Someone just made it up, but it's like not a monster that exists. Like, getting into, as we kind of naturally transition, but now we're going to talk about like things we have to talk about, some of our favorite moments, maybe some of our least favorite moments.
Details.
Yeah, I thought it was cute that Gwen and all the kids' dads met on Halloween. Because I'm like, oh, this makes sense. She was a witch. She came from Halloweentown to...
When the portal was open.
When the portal was open, met the love of her life, chose to stay there. It's all very cute. But then also I'm like, you would think that the day that you met, you would like love and enjoy and want to celebrate. But instead you like shield your kids from it.
I guess because also the portal's open and she wants to shield her kids from Halloweentown and witchcraft.
Yep.
Which I kind of get.
Yeah.
But I also am like... So is 100 years passing every time for Aggie before she sees her kids or grandkids?
Yeah, she does say like time works different.
Yeah, and there's in the second one, Marnie almost gets trapped in Halloweentown, and she says it'll feel like 100 years for her if she does.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
That is crazy.
I mean, Aggie's older than that. She knew King Arthur and stuff, but still, it's. I don't know. It's confusing. It is cute that they met on Halloween, and it makes sense. I really love and have always adored the fact that the kids act as if this picture book lends any bit of legitimacy to the story of Halloweentown. Because, like, Squarey is SquarePants, McSquarePants, Dylan is like, whoa, it's a book when Grandma Aggie's telling the story of Halloweentown, and it's a picture book. It is a children's picture book.
Yes, I completely agree. Also... I know I already mentioned it, but when they're like, and the witch in here looks like Marnie. And I'm like, it really doesn't.
But you know that they made it, like, they made the book for the movie, so the witch is designed to look like Marnie, but it also just looks like any generic white girl with brown hair and bangs.
Exactly.
I think one of the things that makes this movie so charming is all of the little details that they put in related to magic. And so much of their stuff feels like this is a choice. Why not? And one of the great bits is we see Gwen eating the Halloween candy and watching infomercials, and that classic line from infomercials where they say like works just like magic, and she's like commenting on whether or not stuff actually works like magic.
Yeah, yeah.
I enjoy it every time.
While Marnie is getting ready to sneak out, Gwen is in the kitchen, like, I don't know, washing something at the sink. And she walks straight past the kitchen to the front door and sneaks out the front door. And I'm like, is there no other doors in this house? Like, that is ballsy as hell.
Also, we learned in the third Halloweentown High, that Gwen has eyes in the back of her head. So I really don't know how she got away with that.
Oh, that's plot hole. Whenever we get to that one, plot hole. That doesn't make any sense.
I've always enjoyed that detail in the third one. It's cute, but literally since it came out, it has irked me.
Yeah, it does not match up. Also, we mentioned in the summary about Aggie microwaving the witch's brew, and she's like, I shouldn't have used instant. It was just I love the elements of like human things that they bring into the Halloweentown world. I think that's what makes it so much fun to watch as a kid. And then as an adult, the jokes even hit a little bit harder too.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that it's charming and it's part of the escapism, but like grounding it to have it exist in the same time period, more or less. I like when witchcraft and our tech kind of overlap, because then like the internet becomes a big deal in the second one, because that's when teens started being on the internet, you know? It's just, it's silly and it feels more relatable.
Also, early on in the movie, I think when she's asking Calabar, like mentioning Calabar that all the townspeople are like going deranged and some of them are straight up going missing and she's concerned, she admits to having Merlin's talisman. And like, I get at this point, she sees Calabar as the mayor, as someone she can trust and who is passionate about the town. But also, I just don't know why you admit to anyone that you have Merlin's talisman. That just feels like a secret.
I don't know why anyone thinks that anyone other than Aggie Cromwell would have Merlin's talisman.
Well, not true. Maybe it's just known.
Aggie also has a bad habit of this, of the second one, like her spell books are missing and like he already got them decades ago and she didn't notice. Like, I feel like Aggie's just been alive for so long. She's like losing track of how important things actually are and is just like, it'll work out. I'll fix it. Yeah. But I agree. It feels like a big secret. I also didn't write this down, but related to that and how the characters are like, she says they're going mean and then they're disappearing. Why didn't that happen to her and Gwen? They just became frozen, and there were frozen people in the theater. But then we saw the other people first were mean and then frozen. And I don't know, is it a different spell? I'm confused.
I guess I assumed that the spell that made them go like a little deranged and mean is the spell that lured them into the theater, and then once they were in the theater, he would freeze them.
So he's spelling them twice.
But because Aggie and Gwen were already in the theater, he had to just freeze them. But none of this is like backed up by the plot. That is just what I thought.
No, that's a theory I've never had.
Yeah.
Marnie's sass level in this, always in all three films, but especially in the first one, Marnie's sass level is off the charts. And also talking about this has reaffirmed why my cat is named after this character, because never trust a Marnie to not have sass and invade your privacy. Just
so true.
She's so sassy to her mom in a way that a lot of kids wouldn't get away with, but it is very relatable when you're a kid watching it and being like, she gets to say all the stuff that I wish I could say.
Yeah, she's also 13, so I'm like, I don't know, kind of checks out. I feel like she has 13-year-old teenage sass.
Yeah, absolutely. But then she also has sass towards everyone else too, which is fun.
Yeah, she does.
The scavenger hunt part is definitely the most fun to me of the movie. It's the part that I remember the most when they're getting the ingredients. Do you agree?
Yeah, I think when I think Halloween Town, I mostly think the end scene and the movie theater scene, because obviously those are big climax points. However, besides for that, yes, I think the fun, like adventure part of it is not really them getting to Halloween Town. It's the adventure that the three kids go on to like get a tear from a ghost and a hair from a werewolf and all these things. And they have to do kind of funny things to get them. And it's very enjoyable.
It is. And you know what's funny is I think I've just never liked Calabar. I didn't like him as a kid. I don't like him now. I don't find him scary. I find him annoying. And also don't like, I don't know, there's something about the way he looks that just like bothers me fundamentally. So I don't even think of the plot. I think of those scenes. I think they're fun world building scenes where we get the werewolf who's a hairstylist, and we get the tooth fairy is a dentist, and we get that weird aerobics class, and like, you know, it's just, it's fun. And that's the fun of Halloween Town to me, is Halloween Town.
Yep.
That leads into my other note of like every choice of character and detail feels like, well, why not? Which is part of the charm. But like the aerobics class always takes me out because I, again, as a kid, did not realize, but they are literally just wearing face paint. They're literally just wearing cat and dog face paint and bodysuits. There's also the secretary to Calabar who is dressed as a pincushion and is like, I'm on pins and needles. Very cute, very fun. Just a random ass choice. That's not a why not? That's a why not.
But that was one of those that made me feel like these are not monsters. Like, what is that woman? She's not a monster. She's just a pincushion. So why is she in Halloween Town if she is not technically part of the people who should be in Halloween Town? She's just wearing a costume dressed as a pincushion.
Well, I don't think Halloween Town is exclusively for monsters. It's for anyone that's non-mortal.
Sure. I guess I'm including like with everyone under monsters, but yes, she could be non-mortal, but it's just weird.
She's non-mortal because she's a pincushion.
Okay.
It's implied that that's not a costume. That's who she is. It's a way of life. It's
not even a way she is.
It's so dumb. There's also in the final scene, there's a million extras and costumes. One of them is just straight up dressed as Marie Antoinette, just like a French powder wig and all that. The one choice that like we maybe didn't need, but I understand why it was there, is the guys that run the bus ticket counter, because it's two conjoined twins, which like are a real thing. Conjoined twins exist, and they partook in freak shows or were, you know, along with like smaller, like little people and all of that, and obese people or the bearded lady, like those were all real people who then were part of freak shows. And I think that that's how they get included into the label of like magical kooky, but it does feel a little non-PC, I guess. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's a fine line because like erasure from media of disabled people is a problem, but then also the inclusion in media in roles like this also is a problem.
And being conjoined is the joke for them. Like all of their banter, all of the jokes is about that, and they like that's a real condition that people are born with.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess the way that it's so comedic and kooky, the way that the bus people are, that I probably wouldn't have even noticed or cared if I hadn't seen it in the Ant Farm episode recently. How do you feel about them? Like, do they bother? Like, is that something you picked up on that bothered you at all? Or are you just like, yeah?
No, it's not something I explicitly picked up on. I think that if it was a little person or if it was someone with some other mobility disorder that I maybe uniquely feel more connected to because of my mobility disorder, I would have found it more offensive. But since I'm a slightly, I'm more disconnected from that, I also find them funny, but it does go into question of like, why do we find that funny? And is that proper representation? And there are some definite like flaws and issues with the inclusion of those characters, and that being their only personality trait. Now, I think that if they had other personality traits outside of being conjoined, then the inclusion of them probably could be more justified.
If you guys would like to learn more about conjoined twins, a big part of why I maybe thought about this more than just did is because when I was on TikTok more actively a couple of years ago, I watched a lot of Carmen and Lupita, who are a couple of conjoined twins who talk about what it's like to be conjoined in their experiences and in addition to their lives.
Cool. I have problems. So Marnie gets the talisman and she climbs up the giant pumpkin and she's limited time because Caliber is like onto her. And she lifts open the stem and like pulls it off and it just like pulls off like a toy. And then she's trying to crawl in to drop the talisman in. But this pumpkin is so giant that she could have just climbed through the mouth hole.
I don't have a reason for you. I saw this note while I was watching the movie. I was taking notes in the doc. And I thought that maybe I could find an answer, and I can't, other than the whole mortal see mortal do thing. And like when we have a small pumpkin, we put it in from the top. But I agree, it is.
But we put it in through the top because the hole is not big. If the mouth hole was big enough, we would just stick the candle in through that, I feel.
And I understand your logic, and you're not wrong. That's just the only reason I could come up with. Or that, like, the face is scary because smoke is coming out, or that the face was facing him and she was trying to sneak up from behind. Like, yeah, that's all I could think of. Okay. But it is unnecessary. But if she had gone through the front, we wouldn't get that dramatic-ass talisman flip, which I have always thought was so funny.
True.
Is it just a big... this is something I just realized in this watch through. Is it just a big coincidence? Like the biggest coincidence ever that Gwen just happens to show up in Halloweentown for the first time in forever on the same Halloween that Calabar is enacting his plan that's based on apparently getting his feelings hurt when she chose a mortal over him?
Yeah, I think it has to be because he seemingly is not part of the plot at all to get her back to Halloweentown. Like, that is entirely the kids doing. So it's coincidence that she shows up. But you would think if your entire motivation for doing something like evil is one person, you would want them to be there to witness that.
Her being there is an effect of his. He caused that. Because Marnie wouldn't have overheard them talking if Aggie hadn't been saying, this shit's going weird in Halloweentown, which was because of him. So it is his fault that she's there, but it is also like not something he planned for. It's just a coincidence.
Yeah, I do think it is just a giant coincidence, which is also why I don't love that that's his reasoning.
It feels so small, doesn't it? It feels so, for you to want to take over an entire world just because someone chose a mortal over you in what your life has been like 1,300 years ago? Are you kidding me? This is why I never trust a man. Never. Hard left. I've always felt robbed of a potential storyline about Dylan's powers.
Because we never get one? Not even in the follow-ups?
No. In this one, he gets little sparky hands, and he's like, it was probably just like that Aurora Borealis thing I was learning about. And I'm like, dude, you know that is not in any way, that is the dumbest thing you possibly could have said. That is a natural wonder. Anyway, but we see him have little magic-y powers. He uses a little bit of magic in the second one where he says, I'm not a warlock, but they need his help with something again. I don't think he uses any in the third one. And then in the fourth one, he goes to Witch U with Marnie. Like, they go to university together in Halloweentown because Marnie gets in and his mom is like, Dylan needs to go with you to supervise or something, as if they're the same age also, which I don't think they are.
No, they're a year apart.
And I don't even think he uses magic at Witch U. And I always felt like that would be a really fun storyline. Is like the kid that's like afraid of being of having magic actually having it.
They set it up in this movie because at the end, when Calabar steals the talisman out of the pumpkin and they're trying to get it back, all the Cromwell witches are like holding hands together using their powers, and they're like, we don't have enough, and Dylan joins them, and that's when they're able to get it back. So they set it up like he's this vital part of the Cromwell family and that he's gonna be this big warlock. So that is very disappointing that we don't get anything like structured.
Yeah, I've always taken that to mean that he was just a little bit, like, just enough to tip them over the edge, but it could have been, like you're saying, a great warlock. Now, do we want to take away from Marnie? Maybe not. Have I always thought Marnie could have been the weakest link? Absolutely. Sophie's storyline is another one that I have felt robbed of forever, but I digress. The fact that Dylan has little sparky powers in this one and like never again,
Weird.
I love it and I hate it. My last little note about the actual movie is that, did you notice in the final scene, they're talking for like 3 minutes about whether or not Aggie's gonna move with them, and there's like 50 extras all just stood around them listening to their conversation.
Honestly, I blame whatever like producer or assistant director was on set that day.
I know, but they're not even like casually loitering. No, they're all huddled around the Cromwells.
Listening, yeah.
I'm like, bro, so nosy.
Fun facts. I just have a couple things. This isn't really a fun fact, but I always put like awards and accolades under the fun facts section. Don't ask me why. It's just something I do. Kimberly J. Brown was nominated for Best Performance in a TV Movie Leading Young Actress at the 20th Youth in Film Awards for her performance in Halloweentown. And the original ending was Marnie had to travel deep into an enchanted forest to place the talisman. And the further into the forest she got, she continued to age. And so the makeup department had to make a life mask to make different prosthetics to show her aging. But then the ending was rewritten, and I just feel bad for the makeup department. That sounds like so much work and effort for them to be like, just kidding. Like, instead, they're all going to defeat Calabar, and we're sticking the talisman in the pumpkin. Like,
that's also crazy. Like, when I read this note, I could not believe that was the original ending. That is a different movie.
Yes, it is. And I don't think it would have, like, set up the sequels as well.
That's what I'm guessing is why they scrapped it, because if she's aging, then it's harder to film a sequel.
Yep.
I'm glad they didn't do that, but I also like really deeply need to see it.
Yeah, like an alternative ending cut. Yeah.
Yes. Where's the deleted footage, guys? I also just like, this is like a commonly known fun fact. If you're into Halloweentown, Kimberly J. Brown has the actual picture book that Grandma Aggie uses to read to them, and also makes pretty much annual trips to the town where this was filmed to celebrate in the fall, which is just very cute.
It is cute.
She's a big supporter of the franchise still.
As she should be.
Yeah. You can tell she's really proud of it. Quotes.
So,
when I saw you wrote this one down, Jess, I was like, of course. Of course.
Sophie has this point where at the beginning of the movie, she's sitting on the couch and Gwen is like, no, you cannot have a cookie until dinner, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, I want that cookie. I really want that cookie. And then the cookie levitates over to her, but then Gwen snatches it out of the air. And I just have to say that would be a very useful power to have.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I want to be able to go places. Like, when we were in Disneyland, if I could just wish that I wanted something and it levitate into my hands, that would have been nice.
When I read this, I was thinking, I'm on a couch right now and I wish that I had a cookie, and I don't have any cookies in my apartment. And what if I could just wish that I had a cookie and it could levitate from one of the grocery stores down the street?
Yeah. Or even from your next door neighbor. Maybe they have too many.
Or, there's a cafe on the first floor that loves to do baked goods. And they're overpriced. So they can give me a cookie.
Mm-hmm.
At the beginning, there's the obvious Halloween is cool line, but also Marnie has a great line of, nobody around here really appreciates my taste in weird stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, she's so much not like other girls. It's just hilarious.
Yeah.
Classic line from Grandma Aggie, being normal is vastly overrated.
I don't remember.
Marnie says this to Luke.
Okay.
He says, like, I'm something of a big cheese around here.
Yes. When he's trying to, like, talk her.
Ask her out.
Yeah, ask her out and kind of, like, get her interested. She goes, I was kind of hungry, but then I smelled something stinky. Maybe it was the big cheese.
Yeah. Like I said, so much sass.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
I love it, though.
in that same scene. This is when, again, another like costumes were like, that's a choice. The guy that sells brooms is just like an Elvis impersonator skeleton. I've never understood why.
Yeah, but I kind of love them.
Yeah. And when Luke walks off, he goes, that Luke dude, he's turned into such a wiener.
Yeah.
Which is just like really fun and really dumb.
It's really fun and really dumb, but also like, should adults be making those sort of jokes about kids?
But I feel like calling someone a wiener, especially a weenie, is like harmless as a kid. Because I don't think of like a dick. I think of like a hot dog when I was a kid, at least. I thought a weenie was like a baby. Also, just a fun fact about us is that Jess needed to rewatch Halloweentown. I did rewatch Halloweentown, but I had said many times I probably could do this without rewatching. Because I thought maybe I just watched for the quotes. And then I remembered that Luke dude, he's turned into such a wiener off the top of my head without rewatching. And then the great line from Miss Grandma Aggie, magic is really very simple. All you have to do is want something and let yourself have it. Mm-hmm. Which is why Sophie got that cookie.
It is why she got that cookie.
I feel like that's really the crux too of why this movie's so good, is the idea that all you have to really do is like really want something and let yourself have it, and that being the basis of magic is very wholesome.
Mm-hmm. I was gonna say, it feels like that statement is very much like likened to what a lot of like life coaches and spiritual life leaders kind of instruct you in terms of manifestation, right? Like that's the whole root of what manifestation is. Mm-hmm. You want something and you let yourself have it. Obviously there's more involved, but like in general, that's what it is.
Yeah, it is the same concept.
Yeah.
You have any other thoughts, Jess?
No, I love this movie. It's truly one of the best DCOMs out there, one of the best Halloween films out there. And it really, in general, like I know we commented on a couple things, but it has aged really well. Like there's nothing so obviously horrible about it or a ton of jokes that are just like now aged terribly. Like it really has held up.
I agree. Even the stuff that's like low res, like the makeup and costumes being so dumb and so cheap, I find really charming.
Yep. Up next, we're going to do, finally, wrapping up Life with Derek. So we're going to cover the 2 final episodes and do our rankings. So make sure to tune into that one. If you enjoyed this episode, please, please, please rate and review on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, as well as please follow us on all of our social media, 90s Babies Nostalgia, on YouTube and Instagram. Spell out the word 90s. We're also on TikTok, but use the numbers there. Please, please, please comment, DM. We love talking with you all. And with that, we'll see you in the next one.
Stay weird.
Bye.
Babies, nostalgia.